We now start our lecture on Title 7 of the Labor Code, which is on collective bargaining and administration of agreements. This would be the first part of a series of 2 lectures on CBA and the topic of CBA. As to the concept of collective bargaining, the code defines to bargain collectively as the performance of mutual obligation to meet with the purpose of negotiating an agreement with respect to wages, hours of work, and all other terms and conditions of employment, including proposals for grievances, no? And a collective bargaining, or CBA, refers to a contract. It is actually a contract executed upon the request of either the employer or the exclusive bargaining representative of the employees, the SEBA, or the sole and exclusive bargaining agent, which has been elected by the employees to represent them for purposes of collective bargaining. And negotiations pertaining to CBA would be with respect to wages, hours of work, and other terms and conditions of employment. So it could be na halimbawa sa wages, agreement could be made na the set or yung salary could be higher, no, than yung sa minimum wage, or the hours of work, it could be na yung agreement would be on a flexible time, no, not necessarily na 8 to 5, or it could be on the provisions of other benefits like yung the one we discussed last time, I like allowances, rice allowances, or and the like, no, including mandatory provisions for grievance and arbitration machinery. So in case of there arises a labor dispute, then it also provides the manner by which it is to be resolved. And it could be through grievance machinery, or it could be through arbitration. These things, they are all included in the terms of the collective bargaining agreement. The philosophy behind the collective bargaining is, as we have said, individually, employees are at a disadvantaged position. But as a group, they could bargain, no? And they would gain more power to bargain against the employer. And so the object of a collective bargaining is to equalize the bargaining power of employer and employees. You take note of the doctrine of the law of the plant. It means that the CBA is a law between the parties, meaning it's the law between the employer and the employees collectively through their SEBA or through their representative union. No, it means that the CBA, being the law between the parties, it requires compliance of all its terms and conditions by the employer and the union. And it presupposes that the duty to bargain collectively, it presupposes that there exists an employer-employee relationship. Otherwise, if there is no employer-employee relationship, then there is no duty to bargain collectively. You take note also of the doctrine of union monopoly, that once a labor union is recognized as the SEBA, or the sole and exclusive bargaining agent, it means it becomes the sole representative of the employees with respect to collective bargaining with the employer. That would grant them that it alone can collectively bargain with the management to the exclusion of other competing unions. And the bargaining agent, the sole and bargaining agent that is authorized to bargain collectively with the employer could be elected or determined through certification election, consent election, runoff election, rerun election. We would learn more of this later on. The standards to follow in the duty to collectively bargain. First is that it must be mutual. No? The union and the employer are required to bargain without any intent of deception. It's just like any contract, no? They follow the mutuality of contract. They should be, when they come into agreement, they should be in equal footing. And that the parties, when they enter into negotiation or when they enter into agreement, they must be in good faith. The parties are also required to bargain reasonable terms and conditions. Hindi po pwedeng yung unreasonable yung demands ng bawat isa, which is not within the means of the employer, no, or of the employee. He must execute a contract. The CBA must always be in writing because it requires that the CBA must be registered with the regional office of the DOLE or with the NCMB. The duty to bargain does not compel any party to agree to a proposal because this is an agreement, no? In essence, it is a contract which has the same characteristics like a contract under the civil code. And so the terms and conditions must be mutually and freely be agreed upon. The procedures to collectively bargain first would be, of course, the preliminary process, and that starts with the serving of a written notice to the other party. It could be a written notice coming from the representative of the employees, or it could be a written notice coming from the employer. And then the negotiation as to what would be the terms and conditions for the CBA collective bargaining agreement. And after that would be the execution, the signing and execution of the written CBA in written form. And you also have the publication and ratification. It would be subject to approval by the majority of the members of the bargaining unit. And also it requires the registration with the Bureau of Labor Relations in the regional office of the DOLE. And then it's administration. This pertain to the actual implementation of the terms and conditions of the CBA. The existence of collective bargaining agreement would bar the filing of certification election. Certification election is the election to determine the duly authorized representative for the employees. And we know that certification election could only be conducted within the freedom period of 60 days prior to the expiry of agreement. Usually, CBA has 5-year term. And so before its expiry of the 5 years, it is only then that certification election could be conducted. Yeah, the lifespan of CBA is 5 years as far as the representation aspect is concerned. Ibig sabihin, as far as the termination of who is the SEBA or the authorized representative that would represent the employees. However, as to the other provisions, the economic and non-economic aspect provisions of the CBA, they could also always be renegotiated within 3 years. Representation aspect refers to the identity and majority status of the union that negotiated the CBA as the exclusive bargaining agent of the appropriate bargaining. Where, for example, the duration of the CBA has been extended, and during the time that the CBA has been extended and there was a certification election, because we remember that the representation aspect of CBA is valid only for 5 years, and so within that freedom period before the expiry of 5 years, there must be a certification election. It is only the period by which a certification election is to be conducted. And where there is a different labor union that has been elected that becomes the SEBA, the sole and exclusive bargaining agent for the employees, what will happen is that the new labor union would just take the place of the old and administer the agreement, the CBA, which subsists in spite of the change of representation. Itutuloy lang nila yung kung ano man yung napag-agrihan dati nung sa CBA. The benefits of collective bargaining agreement, it would extend to the laborers and employees in the collective bargaining agreement. So if it is a labor union of rank and file employees, it will benefit even those who are non-members of the labor union. But of course, subject to check-off. Remember yung check-off because they will be benefiting from the collective bargaining agreement that has been entered into by the labor union. Kahit hindi sila member, they would be deducted yung union dues. And that is in exchange for the benefit that they would be receiving, even if they do not belong to the bargaining labor organization. A deadlock, a CBA deadlock, it is synonymous with impasse or standstill. Ibig sabihin ay both parties, they could not mutually agree as to the terms and conditions, and so they could not conclude the terms and conditions for the CBA. In case of deadlock, the parties may exercise the following, They call the NCMB, the National Conciliation and Mediation Board, to intervene for the purpose of conciliation or preventive mediation. And they refer the matter for voluntary arbitration, no, in case that there is no conciliation that would be arrived at. In case the voluntary arbitration would fail, the employees could declare a strike, or the employer could declare a lockout, but they should be considered as the remedy of last resort. So the first step should be for conciliation. No, if the parties could not agree on the terms and conditions of the CBA, unang-una ay they have to call the attention, to inform the government, especially the NCMB, to interfere for the purpose of conciliation. And then for arbitration, if everything else fails, then there could be a strike, declaration of strike by the employees, or lockout by the employers. The four-way test in determining an appropriate collective bargaining agreement. First would be the globe election doctrine, that the consideration for the determination of collective bargaining unit is the express will or desire of the employees, that they want to be within a collective bargaining unit. The second would be the mutuality of interest, no? Like they are reflected in groups having similarity of employment status. For example, they are all project-based employees, or they are all permanent employees, or they are all engineers, or they are all health workers. Then they could form their own labor union. Prior collective bargaining history, no, that they already have on previous occasion have formed themselves into a labor union, and so they have the right, no, to collectively bargain with the employer. And similarity of employment status, like if they are all rank and file. We have learned last time that rank and file employees, they could form their own labor organization, no? The supervisory employees, they could assist the labor organization of the rank and file, but they could not join the rank and file employees. But supervisory employees could form their own labor organization. So that is one way to determine whether there is a collective bargaining. As a general rule, there should be one union in the company. This is called the one company, one union policy. Isa lang dapat ang magre-represent sa interest ng mga empleyado within one company. However, there could be different labor unions in a company. Like for example, there is a labor union for rank and file employees. There is a labor union for the supervisory employees, and there is a labor union for security guards, for example. Then they have different labor organizations, and they could be in different collective bargaining unit. And so it is not necessary na in this case, there could be just one union. But what it says is that there could be just one labor union that would be representing all the rank and file employees, because there could be two labor unions, contesting labor unions that would be representing the rank and file employees, no? And in such case, a certification election would be conducted to determine which one of these labor unions would represent the rank and file employees. But for purposes of the rank and file, there should only be one union that would be representing the rank and file, for example. And there could be one union that would also be representing the supervisory employees. But essentially, as a general rule, there should be one union in a company. As long as, again, we take the test as we have provided in here, like the mutuality of interest test, the globe election doctrine, the similarity of employment status test. So there could be 3 CBAs, or there could be 3 SEBAs in a company. There could be 3 sole and exclusive bargaining agent in a company, but they represent different interests, no? It could be one, the interest of rank and file; two, the interest of another representative agent is for the interest of the supervisory employees, or another agent, representative agent, could be for the interest of the security guards, for example. But where an instance where there is only the labor union for the rank and file employees, then usually, as a general rule, you would only have one union in a company. So that would be all for the first part of the discussion on collective bargaining agreements.